Hello, everyone. Welcome on to this week's training. And what we're talking about is how consistency can absolutely get in the way of progress. Now, everybody is constantly preaching consistency is key. I am not going against the grain in any capacity when it comes to the importance of consistency, but I would really like to highlight another perspective of consistency. You guys know, showing up to these weekly trainings, for example, last week we were talking about toxic gratitude. That's simply a new perspective on gratitude. And it's a way to heighten your awareness around what it is that you're doing, and especially the things that you're doing subconsciously, because awareness is a fucking superpower. You've heard me say this before, and I will forever stand by it, right? Awareness is a superpower. When you become hyper aware of the things that you do, you essentially take on full responsibility and full control over what happens in your life. So let's talk about consistency, and particularly, right, with like, let's say building a business online. So many aspects of what I'm going to share can be related to weight loss, can be related to your relationship, right? It doesn't really matter what it is that you want this to speak to you on. It's just the fact that it'll speak to you. Consistency. So, how does it get in the way of your own progress? Well, consistency doesn't mean that you aren't allowed to make changes. And this is a really crazy concept that we tell ourselves, that in order to be consistent, we can never ever make change. That's not true. So for me, let me give you an example of what consistency looks like for me building my business online. First, what it looked like was throwing spaghetti at the wall and saying, what is going to stick? What is going to work? What is sustainable for me to continue to do 6 months down the road? Because if it's not something you can do consistently, then it is not sustainable. It is not something you want to build into your business model if it is not something that you can and will do on a regular basis. Now, you don't have to all of a sudden say, okay, well, I'm going to put this program together. I'm going to share it with the world, and I'm going to stay super consistent with it. And even if nobody buys it, I'm going to stay super consistent with it. At a certain point, you have to evaluate what is working and what isn't working. And for the sake of just having a strategy, you don't have to stay consistent with something that isn't working. Now, what is super important is understanding that there's feedback, right? Everything that we do is creating a feedback in some form or another. So pay attention to it. How is what you're presenting, right? What you're doing online, how is that feedback? How is that resonating? Is it hitting your dream client? Is it resonating with the right person? Is it creating conversations? Is it creating revenue? Look at the feedback and then tap into what you're good at, sort of that innate expertise that you have. Follow your gut instincts and then make the fucking changes necessary. So, the whole purpose of today's like really quick little chat was to really give you the other side of the perspective that consistency is super important. Absolutely. But don't stay consistent for the sake of being consistent. Stay consistent with things that work. And you're never going to know what's working and what's not working if you don't take time to look at the feedback, if you don't take time to recognize what conversations you're having, what kind of revenue are you bringing in from the actions that you're taking. And so same goes with weight loss or with your relationships. What is working and what isn't working? Just for the sake of being consistent, don't just do the thing. Do it if it's going to propel you forward, right? So I just thought that this was a really interesting perspective. And that's honestly something that I am always looking to bring you guys, because I think it's important to recognize that how we perceive everything that's happening around us, I mean, that's all it is. It is a perception. It's not true. It's not false. It's simply a perception. And if you are guilting yourself into posting something every single day of the week, ask yourself why. Are you doing it because someone told you that you had to? Are you doing it because you want to? Are you doing it because you have awesome engagement and so it makes sense to do that? Right? Like, what is the reasoning behind all of this? And so for me, like whenever I first started my business, I was posting every single day of the week, even on Saturdays and Sundays. And if I missed a day, I felt super guilty about it because of hashtag consistency. But what was I really doing? I was just showing up for the sake of showing up, and I had no intention behind it. I had no connection to what I was showing up with. And what happened? Everything fell flat, right? There was no intention. There was no like full embodied purpose behind it. So now when I show up, nope, I don't post a reel every single day. And what are my reels? There's clips of my trainings. Do I go dancing and doing all the things on my reels? No. That works for some people. It doesn't work for me. And I recognized that I was not going to do those things, be consistent with them for the sake of being consistent, and do a thing that I didn't feel connected to. So I would love you to explore, what is it that you are actually doing right now in your business with any level of consistency. Maybe it's your posting schedule. Maybe it's how frequently you go live and do trainings. Maybe it's you doing a monthly challenge. Like, what is it your email marketing, right? Are you sending out an email once a week, couple times a week? What is it you're doing right now that is staying consistent for you? What's working with that? And what isn't working? Because it's okay to pivot. It's okay to drop something that isn't working in order to free up space to do something that is. And that really is quite important when it comes to being hyper aware of building a business online. Is, for one, things are changing constantly. So what worked for consistency purposes 10 months ago, it doesn't really anymore. And that's why it's so important to regulate what you find to be a sustainable, consistent practice based on you, not based on the trends. So, sure, maybe it is trendy and is great for the algorithm to post a reel every single day at the same time every day. I don't deny that. It probably is. But is that something that I am willing and able to do and can do on a consistent basis? No fucking way. It's not. And I know that about myself. So why would I stay consistent with the trends rather than staying consistent with myself? So don't let this, just the sake of being consistent with your content, with your programs, any of that, don't do it just for the sake of showing up. Do it because it's working, because it's connecting you to the right kind of people, because it's bringing in revenue, because it's creating conversations and building relationships. That's really the reason to stay consistent. So, an example with like something that I'm doing on a consistent basis, I do these Friday trainings every Friday. Now, for a while, I felt really guilty about not going live once a week. And I would just rack my brain. What am I going to talk about? All the things. I put so much pressure on myself instead of just recognizing, first off, do I want to go live once a week? My answer was yes. I thought it was important that I show up once a week I speak my truth. I do some training. I show you guys something that you maybe haven't learned before. I say something that helps trigger something in you to go take action and move the needle in your life or your business. That was important to me. I really, really wanted to do that for myself and my business. So I had to be very honest with myself. What day of the week does that look like for me? Is it going to be always live or is it going to be pre recorded and streamed? And am I going to feel guilty about it if it's not actually live and it's pre recorded and it's streamed? No, actually, because I know that the way my days work and my weeks work and how I honor my energy and how I show up at my best, sometimes it means it has to be pre recorded and then streamed out Friday at 9 a.m. And that's okay. I don't have to feel guilty about that just because someone else is showing up live while I'm streaming something. I mean, we live in a streaming world. What you watch on Netflix is not fucking live. You come back to it. And one of the things that helped me get over my hump of like self-sabotaging myself to not do these weekly lives was once I had the perspective of it's not about who's watching it the moment it goes live. Not that to say you guys aren't important. I love you. I love you. But it's about the replay. It's about this conversation being a resource for someone else 6 months from now. So if going live is something you want to be part of your consistency for yourself and your business, then maybe that's a perspective that you need to hear. Is it's not about the today, the showing up right now. It's about who are you going to help 2, 3, 6 months from now when they're having a conversation with you in Messenger and saying how difficult it is for them to show up live and they just cannot. They feel so scared. They don't know why they can't do it. Having a conversation like this on standby that you can tag them in, that you can share to directly into Messenger and say, look, I get you. I felt the exact same way. And I understood that this was important. This was an important consistency metric for me and my business. And so I had to see it a different way. And that's really all it is. If you're willing to do something, are you also willing to see it a different way? Because sometimes that's all it takes. And for me, that's all it took for going live and for removing all of the fear. All I needed to do was see those lives as powerful resources that I know they are, that I know that I can point people back to. So, boom, there's a level of consistency in my business that I created simply by shifting my perspective. Now, had I been going live previously consistently before that? No. What I was doing was going live once a month with like maybe a 1 to 3 day kind of workshop situation. And that's all I felt comfortable doing because that's the only way I thought I could bring value. Because I felt like those, 1, 2, or 3 day workshops were the only way I could show up and bring value because I had so much fear around the whole idea. But now I shifted my perspective and I am consistently showing up every single week saying something. Maybe it's tangible, maybe it's not. It doesn't really matter. But it's the fact that I'm showing up consistently for myself and my business. And I shifted my perspective. And I now know because of feedback, because I've done a little bit of the, analyzing backwards to see what's working and what isn't working. I now know that going live every week, I may not get a ton of views on the Friday that my live goes up, but that live, I have now been able to utilize in Messenger conversations to help edify myself, edify other people. I share podcast episodes with other people that I've recorded, and I'm not sharing that podcast episode because I think I was fucking phenomenal in it. No, it's because of the person I was interviewing and that this person I'm having a conversation with in Messenger, they need to hear it. So when you start creating content in a way that you have that perspective shift, that it is with a very, very specific intention that I'm creating this content to become a resource for you and all of your people, it removes so much of the fear and it allows you to create that consistent habit from a place that feels really, really good. So I just thought this was a really important topic as we sort of are nearing, the end of the year. And I know a lot of people right now are doing a lot of workshops and things about like, let's get our shit together and let's, make sure we've got everything outlined for the new year. It's important, right? It's something that can really, really help you as you dive into a new season of that's really busy or that you have some new stuff happening. But I want to remind you, don't be consistent just for the sake of being consistent. Don't be consistent with trends just because it's what's hot right now. Be consistent with you, with what feels good to you, what aligns with your energy, what you will actually show up for. Be consistent that way. And so you'll never, anytime you come into my world, you will never ever hear me tell you like, you need to be sending out emails X amount of times a week. You need to be going live X amount of times a week. Like, I understand there are algorithms and there are ways to push your message out faster and further. But if it's not sustainable for you and it's not something you will stick with, then doing it is a fucking waste of your time. Anybody can be like viral like that, but can you keep it? That's solid, sustainable, consistent operations, right? So I encourage you, be consistent with the things that feel really good to you. It's okay to pivot. You're the boss. If it doesn't feel good, change it. See the feedback. Pay attention to the feedback. Are you utilizing the stuff that you're creating as resources? Are people plugging into these things? Are you making money from it? Are you having conversations because of it? If it is just falling flat, then it is time to pivot. So see the feedback, pay attention to the feedback, and really embody like your expertise, the side of you that people are coming to you for without you even having to try, right? Like everybody has those sort of innate things about themselves. So pay attention to that. Listen to your intuition. If it doesn't feel good to you, don't do it. If someone's telling you you need to go dance on TikTok in order to be a millionaire, but you're like, what? No. I mean, I'm not saying don't try it, right? If you are all about somebody, trying out these new trends, awesome. For a little while, I tried them out too because I was so new to social media that I needed to see I needed to experience what I didn't want. Let's just put it that way. I needed to experience what I didn't want in order to know what I want. And that's okay. It's okay to experience those things. Like I look back now at my journey that started, oh gosh, 2 years ago, and I recognize I was a hot fucking mess. I did not know what I was doing, but I was trying. I was making an effort. And eventually I was able to explore and identify the things that worked for me. I had to keep going. I had to keep trying, but I was always looking back at the feedback, going, okay, that really fell flat. Okay, that was like a winner. People really resonated with that. I had a great time doing it. Let me keep doing that. And so when I first started my very intentional content journey in 2023, it was in January, and I was very intentional about what I was going to post each day, knowing that I was not going to post on the weekends. That was a choice that I made. I knew that my consistency would not stay up during the weekend, Saturday, Sundays. So I told myself, I gave myself permission. I'm not posting on those days. I will have no consistency around the weekends because I want those days to be for me and to do whatever I feel like doing. So I gave myself these boundaries and it really, really helped me stay out of burnout. And I gave myself about 60 days of staying really consistent with the messaging and what I was doing. And of course, if something didn't feel right, like right off the bat, I pivoted immediately. But if it felt right and all I was waiting on was the feedback, that's where those 60 days came into play, where it was like, you know what, this feels really good to me. So I'm going to keep doing it. Now, what I'm going to wait on is the feedback. So then after about 60 days of that consistency, that's when the feedback was super vital. And I was able to say, all right, these are some things that worked. These are some things that didn't. I still feel really good about this thing, and maybe it didn't quite land. So let me just tweak it just a little bit and see if it, lands in a different kind of, a little bit better. So it's okay to pivot. You're the boss. This is your business. You're allowed to run it however you want. It does not matter what coach is telling you to post X amount of times a day, or if you're in an MLM and they're like, you need to post a testimonial every single day or whatever. Maybe that works for them. Maybe it doesn't work for you. And you have to be okay with recognizing that how you operate is totally different than somebody else. So consistency does not mean sticking with a failing strategy. It does not mean that you are not allowed to make changes. So go be consistent with some major fucking intention.